So let's go ahead and look at this Prager University video in which the woman is advocating for charter schools. Let's talk about it and see if there's anything that she left out.
In the town where I grew up in El Salvador, we had one school. It was old and run down. There weren't enough teachers. There weren't enough textbooks. But my mother was a determined woman, and she had a plan, an amazing plan. I and my siblings would not get our education in El Salvador. We would get it in America. So we left our home, our family, everything and everyone we had ever known. I guess you could say it was an extreme example of school choice. It was a miserable bus ride to California, long and hot, but we made it. That was the easy part. My mother barely spoke English. I spoke none. When I complained to her that it was too hard to learn in American schools, I didn't get much sympathy. We had reached the promised land, the promise of a good education, of unlimited opportunity. English, good English, was required. So I learned it. My mom made sure of that. With that kind of background, you can imagine that I put a premium on the education of my own children. So when my son approached first grade, I took a hard look at the government school in our neighborhood. I didn't like what I saw. Academic standards were low. Discipline was lax. I saw no good future there for my son, but I didn't have the money for private school. I did some research. I found that my district offered something they call a fundamental school, kind of like a charter school, where they stress reading, writing, and math. The test results at this school were higher than at the government school. This was exactly what I wanted for my son. I wasn't the only one. Many other parents had come to the same conclusion. But there weren't enough slots at the school to meet the demand. The only way to get in was through a lottery. My son's education was going to be determined by a lottery? I was frustrated and angry, but I had no alternative, no choice. He didn't get in the first year, but he did in the second year. We got lucky. This didn't make me any less angry, though. I decided to do something with my anger. I decided I would run for school board and push for every parent to have a choice of schools for their children. It shouldn't be a matter of luck. I had no experience running for local office. I certainly wasn't a politician. I was just a mom with an issue. I guess that was enough because I won. But like my long bus ride from El Salvador years ago, that proved to be the easy part. The government school system was in worse shape than I thought. Enrollment was declining, but costs were going up. We had more teachers making more money, teaching fewer kids, with no test improvement to show for it. Why don't we try school choice? I suggested at a board meeting. Introduce competition, because competition almost always makes things better. This sounded like common sense to me. To the teachers' union, it was treason. First came the nasty emails, then the ugly tweets. When I wouldn't shut up, the union packed board meetings with their activists. They booed me, called me names you wouldn't believe. I was even physically threatened. All because I had made the case for school choice. When they couldn't intimidate me, they tried to get me thrown off the school board. When I decided to run for a second term, the union leaders declared war. They spent almost $250,000 against me in 2016, $250,000 for a seat on a local school board. But I won. Again, this time with more votes than any other candidate. And the reason is clear to me. Parents want good schools for their children. They want choice. And this got me thinking. Teachers have a union. Why not parents? So I started the parent union to give parents more of a voice. And now chapters are all over the state and in some of Southern California's toughest neighborhoods. It's a battle, but I'm confident we'll win. There are few forces stronger than a parent determined to get a good education for their child. I'm Cecilia Iglesias, President of the Parent Union for Prager University.
Okay, so keep in mind that there are a lot of charter schools where you have private owners and they're making a lot of money. So they're receiving tax dollars, they're receiving public funds, and they're making money with it. Now, are there some charter schools that are better than some public schools? Yes. There are some charter schools where they're a little bit more selective of who they let in, and And yeah, they do have good teachers, but understand that there are also charter schools that aren't so great. There are some where students do not receive a better education. If you want your student to receive a good education going to a public school, try to put them in honors classes. Try to put them in AP classes. Understand there are a lot of teachers in the public school system that have master's degrees. There's some that have PhDs. There's some that know their subject really well. There's good teachers at every school. Recognize there are people that want to privatize everything, and they want to make a lot of money from schools, which they're not able to right now with public schools. The woman in the video indicating that she was attacked at that meeting, that there were activists. Who do you think these activists are? Just regular public school teachers. You think that public school teachers are really going to be just yelling and going wild and booing? Did she actually have any evidence from that tape showing the activists going wild? There's a good chance that she was exaggerating. She mentioned at one point that the teachers were talking about the public school teachers, that they were overpaid. Okay, how much do you think public school teachers are making? In Utah, at least the state I'm in, most teachers are starting out at about $40,000 per year, and then the ones that have like 30 years of experience, sometimes 2 master's degrees, sometimes they work up into that $70,000 to $80,000 range. Sometimes they work up to that. If a teacher doesn't get a master's degree, they're going to be capping out in maybe like the high 50s. Like, teachers are not these Wall Street executives that are just making crazy money. I'm not saying they should make absolutely ridiculous money, but a teacher with 2 master's degrees and 20 to 30 years experience making $75,000 a year, do you really believe that that's overpaid? Someone who's an expert in a subject, someone who has a lot of knowledge in a subject, has accumulated a lot of knowledge in a subject, teaching it over the course of decades. So again, are charter schools horrible? Like, no, there's probably some that are alright. Do they take some money from public schools, and could public schools be better with better funding? Like, yes. If you want to criticize public schools for not having perfect discipline, yeah, there's a few ways to look at it. Are there times where there's administrators that are maybe a little bit relaxed on the rules and they don't want a huge headache by cracking down on students? Potentially. But do you think that the solution then is to take more funding away? If schools had a lot of funding, they could hire more disciplinarian figures. They could have more like police officers in school that can monitor kids, and if you have some in the classroom that are going really wild, then the cop can take them out and escort them out. If there were more people that were just more of like that disciplinarian role, and more people that could watch like the crazy kids, you wouldn't see near the behavior problems. Yeah, it is unfortunate that you have students that bully one another and that you have behavior problems, but to say that public schools should all be privatized or they should all be charter schools, it's a little bit problematic. Just recognize that there were some aspects of charter schools that she didn't really include in the video. The fact that people can make money off charter schools, that's something that everyone needs to be aware of. The idea that public dollars are going towards private profit, that's something that should be acknowledged. And yeah, people that fund Prager University, they'd love for everything to be privatized. There are also some private schools where they don't teach accurate academics. They don't teach accurate science, evolution, sex education, and they might not teach accurate United States history, where they go into the controversial things that the United States has done, where they go into the protesting of the Vietnam War, the controversy with the election of 2000, those types of things. Thanks for watching. I'll have more coming out on history and politics.